I'm Dani. I've been wanting to make a video for a while. Turns out I just get absolutely paralyzed every time I think about how to talk about books in long form. So we're gonna start it off easy today with a good old-fashioned book haul. My birthday was this month and all I wanted was books, and I delivered. So let's get into it. So the first books we got were the ones that were the reason I went to the bookstore, and it was She Who Became the Sun and He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. I had just finished listening to She Who Became the Sun on audiobook on the drive up to where we went to spend my birthday, and it absolutely took over my brain. The prose is absolutely gorgeous. The imagery stunning, and the subversion of like gender and societal expectation, I eat that up. So as soon as I finished it, I knew I had to own it so that I could continue to revisit this book time and time again, but I also immediately had to start He Who Drowned the World. I am currently 20% into He Who Drowned the World. I am reading it a bit slower. Despite the fact that I'm doing a book haul right now, I do try to be a little bit selective with the books that I buy, either books that have been on my radar for a really long time or about topics that I have been interested in and want to explore, or books that I've already read and know that I want to be able to share with people, let them borrow off my shelf. I want to be able to highlight, thumb through them, revisit them, and these definitely fit the bill. Next up, we got Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. Now, you guys don't know me yet, but once you get to know me, you'll know that I am a huge fan fiction girly. And my book reading is usually pretty slow because I spend so much time on archiveofourown.org. And Naomi here is one of the founders of AO3. We love her. Bless you, Naomi. Oh, it's Novik. I said Novak. My bad. Anyway, this book has come so highly recommended to me by people who are familiar with Naomi's fics, as well as people who have no clue about her lore and are just like, oh my gosh, this book is amazing. So I've had it on my TBR for over a year now, and when I saw it in the store, I said, give it to me. And it sounds pretty epic. The summary says, Miriam is the daughter and granddaughter of moneylenders, but her father's inability to collect his debts has left his family on the edge of poverty, until Miriam takes matters into her own hands. Hardening her heart, the young woman sets out to claim what is owed and soon gains a reputation for being able to turn silver into gold. When an ill-advised boast draws the attention of the king of the Sterrick, grim fey creatures who seem more ice than flesh, Miriam's fate and that of two kingdoms will be forever altered. Also, the cover, it's like that, I don't know how to describe it. It almost feels like rubbery. Do you know what I mean? That's how this cover feels. It feels so nice. I don't read a lot of graphic novels, but every now and then they hit the spot. They're exactly what I need. So I picked up a couple. One is Hockey Girl Loves Drama Boy, which just seems, I don't know if it's YA, but it seems YA. It just feels so light and fluffy and fun and full of like teenage angst and drama and self-discovery. I love anything that plays with like gender expectation, societal expectation, and this definitely feels like that. The summary says, it should have been a night of triumph for Alex's hockey team, but when her mean girl team captain, Lindsay, goes after Alex with her cruelest dig yet, Alex loses what remains of her self-control and punches Lindsay out. Before she knows it, their coach is dragging Alex off Lindsay, and her invitation to the Canada National Women's U18 team's summer camp is on the line. Alex is shaken. She needs to learn how to control this anger, and she is sure Ezra, the popular and poised theater kid from her grade, is the answer. So she asks for his help. But as they hang out and start getting closer, Alex learns that there is more to Ezra than the cool front he puts on. That just sounds so delightful. I love reading graphic novels like this when I want to be reading, but my brain just is overwhelmed and overloaded with the everything of life. And this is like a way to keep my brain going and like staying in stories when I can barely function to read anything. Next up is another graphic novel that I have already read. I read it when I was in high school, and at the time it was so different from anything I had ever read or been exposed to, and it just changed something in my brain chemistry and never left. There are moments from this book that like I can still see in my mind's eye, and that is Blankets by Craig Thompson. I've come to learn that this is like a critically acclaimed book now that like graphic novelists and artists study. I did not know that until I bought it. For me, it was just a book I read in high school and changed my mind about what graphic novels could be. Wrapped in the snowfall of a blustery Midwestern winter, Craig Thompson's graphic novel memoir interweaves a coming-of-age high school romance with the tale of two brothers growing up in rural isolation. The young author wrestles with bullies, unravels his faith, searches for security, and finds his creative voice in this singular and utterly beautiful work. And I just remember when I read this as a teen, it was so poignant, like the questions about faith, the questions about love and family. It was so raw and like visceral, and it has stuck with me ever since. I'm really looking forward to reading this as an adult now, like so far removed from who I was when I first read this at like 17, 16. Sticking with the nostalgia, but going further back, I read a series when I was in elementary school. Every time I visited my grandma, she would take me to the library and I would get the next book in the series. And every time I visited her, I couldn't wait to go to the library and keep reading. And that is The Enchanted Forest Chronicles. And I cannot get this out of my brain. I always think about it. I would talk about it. And I finally said, like, I'm an adult with grown adult money. Why can't I buy it? And so I did. But this follows like a princess who, she doesn't really like put up with being a princess. She's like, ugh, no, I don't want to do princess things. I want to run away and live with a dragon. Again, we're back on that theme of like gender, societal expectation subversion, where she is just like, I do what I want and I'm not going to put on a performance to be who you think I should be, and you all will just deal with it. So I am so excited to own this. I think there's just something really special about the books that we read as kids that stay in our mind. Like obviously there are other series like that were really formative for us, but this is one that just never seemed super popular, but I just like found it in the library one day as a kid and it completely took over my brain at that age. We're taking a sharp left turn now with some LitFic. We have A Spell of Good Things by Ayobami Adebayo. And this was something I picked up from a local bookseller who was doing a pop-up shop, and it just sounded really compelling. It says, Eniola is tall for his age, a boy who looks like a man. Because his father has lost his job, Eniola spends his days running errands for the local tailor, collecting newspapers, begging when he must, and dreaming of a big future. Buraula is a golden girl, the perfect child of a wealthy family. Now an exhausted young doctor in her first year of practice, she is beloved by Kunle, the volatile son of an ascendant politician. When another local politician takes an interest in Eniola and sudden violence shatters a family party, Riaula's and Eniola's lives become intertwined. In her breathtaking second novel, Ayobami Adebayo shines her light on Nigeria, its gaping class divide, and the shared humanity that lives in between. I love books that delve into the human experience and shed light on some of the cultural challenges that we face, whether it's because of your gender or your nation of origin or your sexuality, whatever it may be. And so I'm never going to go to Nigeria, most likely, but I can read this book that has commentary on their class system, and I can draw parallels to maybe our class system here in the US, our political landscape, our religious landscape, our social landscape, etc. We're nearing the end and we're about to take a sharp left turn. So you've gotten to know me. I like fantasy. I like romance. I love learning about other cultures. Now you're going to learn that I like to read about politics and religion. So let's get into it. So first off, still sticking with fiction, we have Fahrenheit 451. I don't think I need to say why this one felt particularly important to own and read right now in this current present time. This one I never read growing up. Like I read 1984, Catch 22. I feel like this is a must read. We got On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. Presented without comment. The blurb says, the founding fathers tried to protect us from the threat they knew, the tyranny that overcame ancient democracy. Today, our political order faces new threats, not unlike the totalitarianism of the 20th century. We are no wiser than the Europeans who saw democracy yield to fascism, Nazism, or communism. Our one advantage is that we might learn from their experience. It's so tiny. It feels a little bit like a handbook because like as I flip through, it's like, here are other books to read on this topic. So it just feels like a really good starting point, especially for those who may not have been super steeped in history and politics all their life. Next in nonfiction, we have Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I read this over a year ago, and it is on my personal required reading list that I think everybody should read at some point in their lives. The audio was fantastic. It's read by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I think most memoirs should be read by their authors because you get all the emotion and like the emphasis, and there's so little left to interpretation. You can really hear it how they meant it, and this was so powerful and so emotional. I remember reading it just like gripping the steering wheel, enthralled with every word. But yeah, so this is one of those books, like I said early on, I already read it, but I knew I had to own it and have it on my shelf. It is short but powerful. Highly recommend everybody read this. Next up, I got Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. I'll read you the summary first. It says, Latino is the most open-ended and loosely defined of the major race categories in the United States. Our Migrant Souls is the first account of the historical and social forces that define Latino identity. Taking on the impacts of colonialism, public policy, immigration, media, and pop culture, Our Migrant Souls decodes the meaning of Latino as a racial and ethnic identity in the modern United States and gives voice to the anger and the hopes of young Latino people who have seen Latinidad transformed into hateful tropes and who have faced insult and division, a story as old as this country itself. I am half Dominican on my father's side. My family's very whitewashed. I don't even speak Spanish. So culturally, I have a lot of feelings about what it means to be Latina and like my own disconnection from the culture. But watching the way Latinos and Hispanic people are characterized and villainized, and how like in my own family, they just kind of turn a blind eye to it and almost play into it. A lot of emotions there personally. So when I saw this book, it spoke to me, and it felt like it was important for me to read. So next we're getting into religion. I was raised very Christian fundamentalist in the South, and like many millennials my age, I have been deconstructing for several years now. And I'm now kind of at the point where I'm trying to figure out who God is outside of the sort of white US-centric version of God that was presented to me in my youth. So my next book is God is a Black Woman by Christena Cleveland. And the summary for this is, for years, Christena Cleveland spoke about racial reconciliation to congregations, justice organizations, and colleges. But she increasingly felt she could no longer trust in the God she'd been implicitly taught to worship, a white male God who preferentially empowered white men despite his claim to love all people, a God who clearly did not relate to, advocate for, or affirm a Black woman like Christena. Her crisis of faith sent her on an intellectual and spiritual journey through history and across France, on a 400-mile walking pilgrimage to the ancient shrines of Black Madonnas to find healing in the sacred Black feminine. God is a Black Woman is the chronicle of her liberating transformation and a critique of a society shaped by white patriarchal Christianity and culture. So while Christena's experiences are going to be unique in a way that I cannot relate to, there is so much in what she experienced about the type of God that she was taught to worship and the discordance that one feels and sees with that version of God and what we experience individually and witness in the world, that I think this is just going to be a very like emotional and enlightening read. Books like this are always tough because I go through them slowly because they're just very personal and emotional. Fraught, I think is the good word. I'm currently reading Field Notes for the Wilderness by Sarah Bessey, and that one has been a really good journey to go through as well if you, like me, have experienced this in your own like faith journey. Finally, I went on a trip to Waco, and my friend brought me to her favorite bookstore called Fabled, I think. And I bought this book, and as I was purchasing it, found out the author is actually from there, and it's a signed copy. So that was very exciting. This is called The Anti-Greed Gospel: Why the Love of Money is the Root of Racism and How the Church Can Create a New Way Forward by Malcolm Foley. So far, I've only read the preface, and it's already full of bangers. Once again, I feel like a lot of people in my generation who are raised in the church now look at how Christianity is used on the national stage, and we're like, huh? This does not compute. This does not seem correct. So really trying to read some voices that are bringing it back to what Jesus' message seemed to be. So there we go. That is my birthday book haul. As you can see, I contain multitudes. Hopefully you've gotten some good book recommendations from this haul. What did I say? Recommendation? Hopefully you got some good book recommendations from this haul and maybe got to know me just a little bit. I feel like you really got to see the breadth of my interests and some lore all in one. Also, if you want to hang out with me more, I'm on Instagram also at Dani Reads Things. So I post things there. I post a lot more about like fan fiction as well as books. So it's a little bit more of a mixed bag, but come hang out with me. Okay, bye!